Chapter 8, Part 3, No Loose Ends. The steel door of the interrogation room closed behind her with a soft click, sealing off the officers who had been foolish enough to let her go. Alex Keene, now free once more, didn't waste a single second. The corridors of the cruise ship, with their garish red carpets and faux gold trimmings, stretched out like a labyrinth before her. The hum of the engines beneath her feet was a comforting rhythm, a steady beat that matched the one quickening in her chest. She had escaped once again, but she knew that to truly be free, she had to eliminate all traces of her presence on this ship. There could be no loose ends. Her mind buzzed with dark excitement as she made her way back to her suite. The persona of Vanessa Sinclair would be discarded soon, but not before she tied up every loose thread. The ship was still days away from reaching its destination, which gave her plenty of time. The first was Victor Lansing. She had been interrupted before she could finish him, but that was a mistake she intended to correct immediately. After retrieving a small, elegant knife from her luggage, a beautiful blade with an obsidian handle she had acquired during her time in Ghana, she slipped back into the shadows. The ship was quiet now, most of the passengers either asleep or otherwise occupied. The halls were sparsely populated, just the occasional crew member going about their duties. Victor's suite was easy to infiltrate. She slipped the lock with the expertise of someone who had done it countless times before. The room was dimly lit, the only sound the soft rustle of the ocean outside the porthole. Victor lay sprawled across the bed, still groggy from whatever sedative she had slipped into his last drink. "Hello, darling," Alex whispered, her voice as smooth as silk. Victor stirred, his eyes fluttering open in confusion. But before he could cry out, her knife flashed in the dim light, slicing through his jugular with precision. The spray of hot blood hit her face, a sensation that sent a shiver of pleasure down her spine. She watched the life drain from his eyes, savoring the moment before he went still. For Victor, she kept a simple souvenir, his gold watch, its face spattered with droplets of blood. It glinted in her hand as she slipped it into her pocket. The first of many trophies she would collect that night. The next on her list were the officers who had interrogated her. She couldn't risk them piecing together the truth after she was gone. With the efficiency of a practiced predator, she found the younger officer first. He was smoking a cigarette on the deck, the moonlight casting a silvery glow on the water. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice a sultry whisper in the night. He turned, surprised but pleased to see her. Yeah, sure," he stammered, clearly still infatuated by the act she had put on earlier. In the blink of an eye, her knife was out, plunging deep into his chest. His eyes widened, a strangled gasp escaping his lips before she twisted the blade, severing his heart. She caught him as he fell, easing him silently to the ground before rolling him over the railing. The splash was barely audible against the roar of the waves. For him, she kept his badge, a small token to remind her of how easily men could be fooled. Detective Markson, however, required more finesse. He was more cautious, more aware. Alex found him in the security room, poring over the ship's surveillance footage, no doubt trying to find something incriminating. She entered quietly, using the cover of darkness, her heart pounding with the thrill of the hunt. "Detective," she called softly, her voice a siren song. He turned, suspicion etched into his features. But before he could react, she threw herself at him with the speed of a viper, her knife slashing through the air. He managed to grab her wrist, but her other hand produced a thin cord, the same garrote she had used before. She wrapped it around his neck, pulling tight, her muscles straining as she cut off his air supply. His eyes bulged, his face turning a sickening shade of purple before he finally went limp. For Markson, she kept his wedding ring, a token of the life he would never return to. One by one, she hunted down her targets. Crew members, witnesses, anyone who might have seen her enter or exit the cabins. By the time the sun began to rise over the ocean, Alex had collected a small pile of souvenirs, a cufflink, a lipstick-stained handkerchief, a pair of reading glasses. Each item was a testament to her lethal efficiency. But she knew better than to keep them. Just before dawn, she stood at the edge of the deck, the wind whipping her hair around her face. One by one, she tossed the tokens into the churning sea, watching them disappear beneath the waves. She couldn't afford to leave any evidence behind. As the last token, a silver locket from a woman who had seen too much, sank into the depths, Alex turned away. It was time to prepare for her next move. 2 days later, as the cruise ship neared the coast of America, Alex was ready to disappear once more. She had dyed her hair black, changed her wardrobe, and was preparing to slip away under the cover of the bustling port when fate introduced her to someone unexpected. Dr. Emmanuel Achimpong was a man of quiet sophistication. He was tall, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to pierce through any pretense. They met in the ship's lavish dining hall, where he had been giving a lecture on cutting-edge medical technologies. His charm was subtle but compelling, and Alex found herself intrigued in spite of her usual disdain for human connection. Over a glass of wine, he leaned in closer, his eyes locked on hers. "I couldn't help but notice," he said in a low, smooth voice, "that you wear those sunglasses even indoors. Are you hiding something, or is it simply a fashion statement?" Alex's lips curved into a smile. "Let's just say I've grown accustomed to the dark." The doctor studied her for a long moment, his gaze intense. "It's fascinating," he murmured, "but I believe I may have a solution for that. I'm on my way to New York to present a breakthrough in optic nerve regeneration. It's experimental, but if you're willing." Her pulse quickened. The idea of regaining her sight was intoxicating. For years, blindness had been her ally, a way to mask her intentions and lure her victims into a false sense of security. But the thought of seeing again, of experiencing the world with full clarity, it was a temptation she couldn't ignore. "Perhaps we should discuss this further," she said, her voice like silk. "In private." The doctor smiled, and she knew she had him hooked. But this time, it wasn't just about the thrill of the kill. For the first time in years, Alex felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in ages: hope. Hope that, perhaps, she could become something more than just a monster hiding in the dark. Hope that, with her sight restored, she could ascend to even greater heights of power and control. But as always, the darkness within her whispered, hungry for blood. And she knew that even with new eyes, she would still see the world through a crimson haze.